Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be talking about how to keep players coming back. Now, if you ever had issues or concerns about why your players leave and don't come back, well, it's not because your game is bad. In a lot of cases, they leave because you stop giving them reasons to stay. So today we tackle how effective live ops strategy builds real player loyalty, exploring event design, personalization, and content cadence that can turn casual players into regulars. And the amazing thing is, this doesn't just apply to live ops either. So today we're going to learn how to balance monetization with trust, avoid common retention pitfalls, and create a sustainable approach that keeps your players coming back for more. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everybody, and we're back. And today with us, I have Sergei Vasiuk. Sergei, how's it going, man? And thank you so much for being here today.
I'm fine. I've been living in Cyprus for 10 years already. And right now during the summer, it's literally bloody hot.
Yeah.
Okay, the last week we already turned to plus 40, and it's just the beginning of July. So we're expecting plus 45 in the middle of August. But thanks God, this summer I have planned before Gamescom to go to Iceland and spend 1 week in Iceland. So it's going to be more colder than Cyprus.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Celsius, folks, like when we're talking plus 40, I mean, that's 35 is like 90, 95. So that gives you an idea of how freaking hot. Sorry, it is over there. And I know most of Europe has been being getting crushed by these heat waves. Like
this June, July were very, very hot in general in Europe.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I feel for you, and hopefully a cool wave will come down. At least give you guys a few breaks here and there. But at any rate, yeah, hot stuff, I guess, right? So, but anyway,
I get used to. I originally from Belarus, where I remember during my childhood, the temperature during the winter was minus 25. But yeah, after 10 years, I would say that my body get used to this heat.
So yeah, okay, and it sounds like you could take anything then.
Yes.
Awesome.
I mean, but come on, in New Hampshire, I remember when I spent the 2 summers in Walt Whitman camp.
Yeah,
the locals shared with me some pictures where you can literally see it on the basketball rink because the height of the snow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some extreme snowfall and such there, because that's that camp is up north in New Hampshire. Where I'm from. So, man, crazy winters, and it sounds like you're a weather extremist, or at least you can handle it. So
yeah, at
awesome.
least yes, I'm more tolerated to these weather conditions.
Well, thankfully today we're in the best condition I think possible to handle the weather, so we can get into our conversation. But before we do, for those of you who aren't familiar with Sergei, he is the product director for the wargaming.net platform. So I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with wargaming. And Sergei, you were even the lead live ops for multiple wargaming titles across various locations and stuff. And please, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about what you're doing now and what you've done before for wargaming.
All right. So I joined wargaming in 2012 when wargaming was just a 300 people company. Now we are almost 4,000. And I came this journey from the technical project manager because by education I'm an engineer, and I spent almost 10 years as a Java developer on the different roles. And then in 2017, our former chief marketing officer came to me and said, "Look, I mean, you guys have a lot of tools for operational teams and for marketing and publishing, but they are more like engineers for engineers." And no one in marketing and publishing cannot understand how to operate them. So join marketing, and we will give you all possible resources just to create these operational forces to operate our live service games. And I remember that in 2017, even live ops as a word didn't exist. So I hired first manager with the title live ops manager. So this is where my live ops journey started. And then it turns from like a small CRM team, which how we call it back then, to live ops initiative. And then there was even the internal agency, we call it audience management agency, which support all our titles for PC, console, and mobile. And then when the company switched to the more franchise way of operating the games, I joined World of Tanks franchise as live ops director and spent like almost 3.5 years in this role. And at the beginning of the summer, actually, I literally like back to the roots again, to the development side of wargaming business, to lead in our wargaming.net platform, which actually the tool sets for all live ops and operational and marketing and publishing teams across all franchise, across all platforms, PC, console, mobile. So basically, right now, I will have a chance to kind of spread my knowledge from the business part to extend the capabilities of our internal tool sets.
Wow. Like, so such a interesting, journey and everything from a team of 300 all the way up to this point now where it's, you're basically like helping to oversee like every aspect of these things, especially like, public facing and even on it, like all those intricate moving parts and stuff that we generally don't think about. So really exciting stuff. And on top of it all, I mean, you just came out with a book, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I always joking about this because all credit should goes to COVID, because here in Cyprus we were locked down for 4 months, literally 4 months. We had just one SMS per day to go out. So, and with the team, we decided, all right, so let's just collect, create our knowledge base, the small presentation for internal purpose. And then in 2022, our HR team reached out and said, look, we want to arrange online courses to attract fresh graduates around Europe to join wargaming in all our European locations. And this is what's kind of next point where we created online course. And then during the graduation party after first cohort, one of the students asked me, look, why don't you convert your live ops course into a book? And I said, look, challenge accepted. And then I just send 5 or 6 applications to the different publishers. And one of them from the UK, Serious Press, replied to me that, yeah, this is a good topic. And there is no books related to this topic on the market back then. And I believe this right now. So in 2023, I signed the contract with the publisher with the published date in December last year. So yes, on the 4th of December 2024, my book was published, and yeah, I almost reached like 600 copies sold after 6 months, which is for the very narrow topic kind of good benchmark.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I love that story behind it too, because oftentimes we like think about, when we're in situations with a lot of limitations, such as, COVID, and we all were, like how you can really make the most out of it. And even though you say those sales numbers and people like might not think it's not huge, but I mean, this book, I mean, I haven't seen it myself personally, folks, but I mean, from what I understand and know about it, it is like the book. It is so in depth and detailed and everything else and hyper focus. I mean, come on, you guys made a whole course about it, right? And everything. So lots of great things there. But I mean, that's the thing sometimes is like if as long as you're serving that specific need and everything, that's says it enough, right? And this book definitely delivers on that, and clearly the publisher saw that too, as they called out, saying like, hey, there's not really anything else out there like this needs to get out there. So glad you spent the time to put this together, because I think it could be a very valuable resource for a lot of people out there. So
I hope so.
awesome. Well, hey, Sergey, I really appreciate you sharing that about yourself, but now we're going to get into the conversation. But before we do, we're going to have you go through the Q box round. And folks, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's just a few random questions I prepared here today for Sergey. So, Sergey, are you ready for the Q box round?
Should.
All right. First is, what's the most helpful or impactful advice you ever received?
Let's come back to the period when I had the chance to transmit from the development part of the business to more marketing, and our former CMO told me that don't try to impress the room, try to serve it. And I first learned this during my transition from engineering to live ops. You can build the best tech in the world, but if it doesn't help marketing community or the players, you've missed the point. So that advice shaped how I wrote the book, focused on usefulness and not flash.
Yeah, it's all about the value, and love that. That's such a good lesson right there. Next is, what was your childhood favorite game?
As a kid, my first love was Nupaga. It's electronic handheld. So
Okay.
just and actually it was Nintendo's clone back in USSR. But where I really focused and found my passion was in sports and racing games. I was obsessed with FIFA, NBA, NHL, and especially anything Formula One related, and Need for Speed. And literally, I even bought PC VR, VR2, only for one reason: to play Gran Turismo 7 in VR.
Nice. All right. And last but not least, and the staple here on the show is, what game are you playing now?
I mean, for me, the answer is pretty obvious. World of Tanks PC. So even after certain years, I'm still fully committed to it, not as a not only professionally, but as a player. And yeah, we have a lot of prototypes in wargaming right now for mobile and the console and PC. So basically, I try to spend my free time, which sometimes very hard because I'm a parent of two kids. So yeah, mostly I play our wargaming games, and in order to be in touch with what's going on the market, my son is the kind of gamer, so I always like to watch how he plays. And I always literally, I don't understand how this generation plays. So
I don't either.
yes, if we're talking about even Fortnite, I mean, I don't understand how it's possible to jump, headshot, and at the same time build something.
I know.
So, I mean, it's crazy. So for me, that's why World of Tanks, it's a slow vehicle shooter. I can take my heavy tank, hide behind the bush, and stay calm.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's times when I had two moments where my son's neighbors of our friends of his came over, and they changed. I was playing a little bit of Fortnite, and they changed all the controller settings, so the sensitivity was like hypersensitive. So then I pick up the controller, and I literally, I felt like I didn't even touch it, and it just shot, and the camera angle just shot straight up, and I was just like, how do they even play like that? There's not even time to think or respond, but they can. It's nuts. So yeah, I'm with you that, and it pains me because then I feel like I can't play games anymore. Like it's not me. It's a time generational thing. That's what I keep telling myself. So, well,
So true.
appreciate you sharing all that. All right, folks, and now let's get into the heart of the conversation. Like I led with in the intro, what we're going to be talking about is, how to keep players coming back. Really important stuff here. And, to kick things off, I'm just curious, Sergey, like, what does live service really mean in today's industry, especially for indie games?
When people hear live service, they often imagine just feature layers,
Mm,
events, offers, formal mechanics, etc. But that's misunderstanding, especially for indie teams. So its core live service isn't about patch frequency. It's about shifting your mindset from launching a product to nurturing an evolving relationship. As I write in the book, the real game starts after launch. That's when your game stops being static and becoming a live system, one that grows through players' interaction, feedback, and continuous value delivery. So for indie developers, it doesn't mean doing more. It means doing differently. It's not about chasing feature parity with the big studios. It's about being intentional with what you're support and why. You don't need 12 event types or weekly content. You need to understand what keeps your specific players coming back and build a lightweight system around that. The foundational for good live ops isn't volume, it's rhythm and purpose. So in my book, I talk about how many successful teams, even with limited resources, find their so-called minimum valuable live ops. They might be simple recurring weekend bonuses or monthly missions, community voted event every few months, or live ops calendar aligned with real world dates, like use global events or holidays to template content. None of these require a huge team, but it does require structure.
mm.
You need to treat live ops like product management, defined goals, measure results, and align with your game's unique identity. And importantly, you need to stop seeing live ops as extra. It's a big trap. Players don't remember just your launch, they remember how you treat them after. That's where operational discipline kicks in. Sustainable live ops require four things. Number one, a clear strategy. Why are you running these events or update? What do you want players to feel or do? Number two, a predictable cadence. Even if it's monthly, keep it regular. Uncertainty kill trust. Number three, a scalable toolkit. Don't hard code events. Build system that let you reuse or remix. And finally, a feedback loop. Always learn from what worked and what didn't. So, and in short, you don't have to be massive. You just have to be consistent because in live ops, trust beats hype every time.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many great takeaways there. You know, just from the concept of shifting, from from launching a product, to, nurturing and serving and thinking in that type of a mindset, it makes all the difference. And then those 4 points that you called out too, I think super valuable, like strategy, predictable cadence, scalable toolkit, and a feedback loop. It's funny because if you really look at it, these things are no different than how you can also treat other products, other games that you're creating and stuff, and just some of the dynamics shift a little bit. But otherwise, these are really core sound principles that all games should really follow, that are going to be, doing what they can to, build value, not the volume, as you said. Such a great line there
Right.
too. In light of that, you know, getting into like retention and even maybe a little bit of player behavior, how and perhaps I know you gave some examples and mentioned some in a moment ago. How would you go about like approaching building systems that maybe play off of this framework that you laid out and keeps players coming back with kind of not making it feel like a grind? Because I know sometimes some of us run into that problem where, oh, live ops, it feels like a grind. And we got this, a lot of extrinsic motivations that are now just like, we're not going to stick around anymore because it's all grindy essentially.
Look, you start with one word: respect. I even posted about this last week. So live service games aren't about pushing player harder. They're about earning the right to be part of their routine. And the relationships is only last when there is mutual respect. So I have 7 points again because I like all structured points. So number one, respect players' time. If you have 10 minutes of content, don't stretch it over 3 hours with artificial frictions. Grinding isn't depth, it's delay. Let's fun be the reason to stay, not format. A well-paced systems like a short weekend challenge or a seasonal goal let players feel progress on their terms. They should leave a session feeling satisfied, not stuck. Number two, respect their wallet. Fair doesn't mean free, but players should always feel that what they spent, whether time or money, was worth it. Give players relevant offers, meaningful bundles, and clear value. Avoid bait and switch tactics or exploitative loops. Respected players is more likely to connect, not less. And number three, respect players' feedback. Not every complaint is an attack. When players care enough to tell you what feels off, that's a gift. Use that input to adjust difficulty curve, reward pacing, or even event cadence. Your analytics might show the numbers, but their words explain the why. And when they feel heard, they stick around. The next one is respect their loyalty. Grind is not a proof of love. Too many systems assume that time equals engagement, but real loyalty looks different. Some log in daily, other return every few weeks. Celebrate both. Give recognition to long-time players in subtle ways, like titles, cosmetics, reactivation bonuses. Let consistency be rewarded, but never demanded. Also, respect players' identity. Not every players want to compete. Not everyone wants to socialize. Design live ops with flexibility so the solo explorer, the PvP warrior, or the collector all have space to thrive. The more your game allows players to explore who they are, the less it will ever feel like a grind. You are not just keeping them busy, you are giving them a role. And finally, respect players' goodbye. Let players live without shame and return without friction. And one of the most powerful live ops strategy is reactivation, but it only works when you avoid punishing absence. A great live games always keep the door open. So in the end, it's about relationship design. A well-built system makes player feel trusted, valued, and free to engage in their pace. And that's what makes them come back. So bottom line, if you want players to respect your game, start by respecting them.
I love that concept so much, and how you like broke it down into those steps too, like just those rules of respect, right? And there's so many here, and it's funny. It's like I know we're talking about live ops here, but it doesn't feel like it, at least exclusively, at least. And another thing that stood out too is when you called out, hey, Atlantic Analytics, show your numbers when it comes to like really understanding behaviors and stuff, but it doesn't explain the why. And these whole principles, kind of these steps that you just outlined, I think do a really good job at kind of like showing us as developers and studios of the importance and the different layers that respect actually has. So we can start to, understand that why. And maybe we're not going to have all the data and everything that can help us do that, but at least if we're, shifting that focus, that mindset a bit, it's going to put us in a better position to be able to do so.
Right.
I'm curious too. I mean, from these frameworks and everything that you just went through with us, you know, has there ever been, a situation, a scenario, or anything, or maybe even an example you can share of, when a live ops feature or something similar, had a really surprisingly like big impact on retention, like a change that was made, and then all of a sudden you're like, aha! Like, was there ever an aha moment when you're like, this is how we can really strengthen this relationship that we have with our players?
Absolutely. And it came from a moment outside the game entirely.
Interesting.
Back in 2017, I was at the UEFA Champions League match in Cyprus. Real Madrid with Ronaldo was playing against local Apoel. The stadium was packed and the energy was wild. And I had these thoughts mid halftime. Our World of Tanks players love football. So instead of competing with it, why not connecting to it? So I realized I wasn't playing the game either. I was fully immersed in the football match. And that was the spark. What if we acknowledged that passion and gave players a reason to return to the game after the match ended? So for the next Champions League game, we ran a simple experiment. We created two bonus codes, one for each team. If you guess the winner correctly, you got a reward in game. But to actually receive the reward, you have to log in and play one battle. So the result blew us away. So first, the moment we posted the bonus code on social media, the comment sections lit up. Not about tanks, but about football. Players were predicted scores, arguing over lineups, laughing at rivals, and yet they were doing it inside our game community. That was the first signal. We didn't need to pull players into the game. They were already connected. We just gave them a reason to engage. The second, we saw an unexpected spike in traffic to the premium shop. To redeem the bonus code, players had to visit it. And while they were there, many ended up spending. It was one of those side quests of live ops that turn into revenue drivers. And finally, this was on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, a classic low activity day for the World of Tanks. Yet we saw a notable lift in battles played right after the match and continuing into the next day. All from a zero dev, content light, culturally syncing mini event. So that little test grew into something much bigger. For the next Euro and World Cup in 2022 in Qatar, we turned it into a full live ops event. Players could create friends room, invite others, predict outcomes, climb in leaderboard, and yet still claim rewards if they guess correctly. It scaled naturally. We encourage advocacy by giving players something fun to share. We unlock user-generated content as the prediction threads become the longest running discussion of our forum for entire 2022. And we focus on the fostered community engagement, even for players who were not actively playing at the time, they were still in our ecosystem. So in almost 35% of our monthly active users participate. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, especially since all rewards were for free. But behind the scene, we also used to quietly balance the soft currency economy, reducing the credit balance by over 5%. So what started as a halftime idea became one of the most impactful live ops format. So that's what I try to emphasize in the book. So great live ops isn't always about new features. Sometimes it's about context, meeting players where they are and giving them just the right things to come back.
Yeah. And, I love the story so much because when you say the right things to come back, again, that doesn't necessarily mean it all has to be game related. We can't be entirely game focused, even though that is the business, that is what you're creating and everything else. I mean, in this case, it was just, we're talking about football, we're talking about sports. And you found that unifying thing. You ran a test, and then that took you all the way down to like then building systems and other features and such based off of the demand that you saw from this test too, which I think is important too, because sometimes a lot of people are like, oh, we need to scale and have these things, even if we can't validate right now that they're going to be used, but we know it can be used once we have it. But again, this is a really good approach. But I got to go back for a quick moment and ask this very simple question that led to all this. How did you guys figure out that so many of your players loved football? And we're soccer, correct? I'm just making sure it's
Yeah, I mean, in
yes
Europe,
for our US friends.
but I mean, I'm following right now the Club World Cup in the US, and next year it's going to be World Cup in Canada, US, and Mexico. So I'm kind of a football fan, so I know how it works. But back to your question, I mean, our core audience mostly like males 40 plus, and when we arrange our surveys, we always try to understand who our players. I mean, their social demographics and their habits and everything. So, and one of the top hobby or interest for our players is football and the soccer in the US. So literally when you understand that most of your players in the offline world are interested in football, it's easy to at least try to think how to connect this online world with offline world and give your players a reason to go between and not compete.
Yeah. And I like that too, because I think what on a different sense too, it also just by them saying we have an interest in football, right? There are probably other factors that like you can start assuming a little bit where it's like, well, if they like football, they might be have like healthy competitiveness because who's not going to be competitive and root for their home team and for their favorite and everything else versus someone else. So it's like forms like camaraderie. There's all these other types of behaviors and actions that are come out of this, and it's like, well, that could totally be emulated in our space too. And that's exactly what you saw. But again, just from a simple question of saying like, what sports do you like, can infer so much other information that you could potentially use, test, and grow and scale from there, which is exactly what you guys did.
Yeah. At
But
the end of the day, we are humans with our interest in offline world.
right, exactly. We're just people, right? And because that we're people, there's going to be lots of other cool interests that we have that as developers and creators, we can totally tap into. So, speaking of tapping into, I want to get into a few other areas too. Maybe about strategy, potentially even like culture, and you know, and maybe get into some monetization because I'm sure that can sometimes feel big and scary, especially when we're thinking of a volume opposed to value. Because I think that money becomes a gray area at points. But when it comes to those types of things, like let's say balancing business goals such as monetization, what are some good ways to go about doing that, especially if you're trying to lead with a player first design principles? Because that can often, like I said, it could be a little bit challenging.
The short answer, you don't need balance them, you align them. In fact, the most successful live service games create systems where spending feels like a natural extension of engagement and not a disruption. So you start by flipping the usual question. Instead of how can we get players to spend more, ask what are players trying to achieve and where can we add value to that? That's where ethical monetization lives, and in the value moments players care about most, where it's progression, customization, convenience, or social status. If your monetization support those goals, it feels fair, and players will thank you for it. So in my book, I talk about this with the examples of remote configuration for special offers. We didn't just flood the shop with discount. We built tools to deliver timely, personalized offers based on player behavior, not just broad segmentation. That small operational shift had a huge impact. Better conversion, better sentiment, and not complaints about unfairness. The key is trust. Trust is built when players feels like they are not forced to spend. They understand what they are playing for, and the rewards are worth their time or money. So the real question isn't how much can we earn from players, it's how many players trust us to support the game willingly. Here where operations matter. I'll always recommend team run regular health check, not just on revenue numbers, but on how players talk about monetization. Do they describe the battle pass as worth it? Do they look forward to events or dread the grid? Those are leading indicators of sustainable business. And one last piece, respect your economy. If you don't control inflation, soft or and hard currencies, you lose the ability to create meaningful purchases. So how do you balance monetization with player first design for value, not pressure, personalize offers to player goals, monitor sentiment, not just revenue, reward trust with fairness, and never forget, a loyal player is more valuable than a paying one. Monetization doesn't ruin games. Misalignment does.
Yeah. Yeah, such a great point too there. And and one thing I'm picking up here too is, how we led in with this question and how you answered it and first addressing saying, "Hey, it's not about balance, it's about alignment." It got me thinking too where lots of times I think, teams may look at this concept and idea of monetization, and they look at it when we see goals, they look at it from an outcome-based perspective. Like, these are the results we need, and we got to hit these numbers. Let's, reverse engineer, break them down, and we have numbers that we need to hit. But what's not happening there is then the process of that, and processes create byproducts that are often results. And I love how you broke this down too, because then in your case, the process that you at least outlined was, hey, a key thing here is respect, trust, and also where can we continue to add value? If we're adding more value, if we're adding more of those memorable moments and everything else, players are going to stick around. They're going to feel good. They're going to spend more because we're giving them all those respectful dopamine hits and other
That's right.
emotional triggers and everything else. And that's the process in order that can then aid in getting those outcome-based results that we are always looking at and worrying about, that bottom line.
Absolutely.
In light of that though, okay, this kind of maybe make sense for like really much bigger teams and everything. How can smaller teams then use, things like personalization or segmentation effectively, especially if they don't have, big data teams or budgets? Because I'm sure when you have the information, it's a lot easier potentially, or maybe simpler to execute on these things.
Look, you don't need a data science team to personalize the experience. You just need clarity, constraints, and creativity. You don't need real-time machine learning. You need smart logic and player empathy. So start by identifying a few meaningful segments based on behavior you can track easily. For example, first-time players or returning players after 7+ days, or highly active players, or non-spenders versus recent spenders. So even a basic CRM or analytics dashboard can give you these segments. Once you have it, create light, tailored experience. You are not building 50 branches, just two, three smart variation. Let's say a new player logs in for the third day in a row. You might send them an encourage message 3 days in a row, looking strong, commander, whatever. This is personalization not through complexity, but through tone, timing, and relevance. So in my book, I also talk about how small teams can use so-called remote configuration to power these differences. Instead of patching the game, you push tailored content or offers remotely, bonus missions for win backers, or starter pack only visible for newbies, or small time limited bundles based on previous purchases. It's a low cost way to increase perceived value without increasing scope. So, and finally, don't forget the human personalization, especially in smaller games. A short dev message in the main menu, or Discord shout out to active players, or even reacting to players created content. All of this is personalization, and it costs almost nothing. So to sum up, use simple player states, not deep segmentation, trigger offers and messages via remote toolset, not patches, and treat every moment of communication as a chance to say, we see you. Because personalization doesn't start with data, it starts with intention.
Yeah, I love that last point too. Like, treat every moment like that with the right intention and stuff. Because you're absolutely right to signal and show that you see players can just really make all the difference. And think of it from a personal perspective too. If you're in a large setting, or I don't know, going to the grocery store or something, and someone just comes up to you and I don't know, thanks you or does something just out of kindness or whatever, like you feel seen, you're like, wow, that made me feel really good. I mean, it's that type of connection that can make all the difference. And even more so, I think it stands out, well, in any setting, really, online or in person. Those moments matter. So when you start looking at things that way and doing those things, players recognize it. You recognize it. And the way I see it, it's just fulfilling both ways. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely win-win.
So we have an understanding about strategy and how this can really impact how we work and trust and build relationships with players. What about the team itself? I would imagine that getting to this point, mindset changes and things like that are somehow maybe stem from something else. So what I'm thinking here and curious about, how important is team culture and running a successful live game, especially over multiple years? Because I imagine that has to have something, with the intent and how you guys are, building trust with your players. How important is it?
Look, we will celebrate 15 years anniversary of World of Tanks this August during Gamescom. And believe me, culture is everything. Features come and go, roadmap shift, tools gets replaced, but the one constant in a long-running live service games is the team and the culture that hold it together. Running live service game is a marathon of decision, not a sprint. That requires a team culture that's resilient, aligned, and built for sustained clarity on the chaos. So I have a couple of critical long-term points regarding the culture. So number one, culture keeps priorities aligned when things get messy. So live service games are messy by by nature. Players surprise you, systems breaks, monetizations plans flop. A strong culture makes sure the team knows why they are doing what they're doing. Without it, people default to short-term thinking, fixing the metric, pleasing the executive, chasing a quick win. But with the healthy culture, the team can ask, does this decision serve our players? If this align with our overall live ops strategy? That alignment is what prevents burnout and bad calls. The next one is the culture support emotional endurance. You cannot run a game for 15 years if people are burning after a year. In my experience, the best teams normalize rest, curiosity, and feedback. We create rituals like post-mortem open reviews and what I call the Friday talk sessions. The goal isn't just solving problem. It's helping the team stay human in the constant flow of deadlines and players' expectation. Another one important thing is culture builds institutional memory. You're not just building a product, you're building a body of knowledge. Healthy culture captures insights, mistakes, and learning so they don't walk out the door when someone leaves. In my book, I emphasize the importance of a system that outlive the people who made them. Live ops calendars, event playbooks, rollout protocols, but without a team culture that value transparency, documentation, and trust, and this helps to create this institutional memory. And the last one, I would even say the most important is that culture enables speed without panic. Live service games are reacting by nature, but great teams don't just react; they respond. That difference comes from culture. When the community flowers up or patch breaks something, a grounded team with shared values can move fast without finger pointing. Uh, we were not perfect, but we were consistent, and that gave us the whole company the confidence in us. So yes, your culture in the end of the day is your engine, is not your system. That without this engine, you won't be survived. So you ask how important is culture, and I would say the invisible roadmap behind every roadmap. The reason your game survives patch fatigue, monetization pivots, or even team turnover. And in live service game, survival is success.
I love this and the fact that you broke it down the way you did, because a lot of times, and this is just my interpretation and what I see in my own circles and stuff, is when people are often talking about culture, it's really focused more so on the team of the culture and conversations around, let's say, burnout. But either it's at a high level or it's just really focused on how team members are being treated. But it goes deeper than that, and I love your 4 points and explaining that, because it's not just about the team itself, but it's about the alignment. That's obviously a related point to the team aspect, but then as much as about understanding the right purpose and intent associated with the players. And then there's that process of learning, like what do we learn, how do we gain from it? And then the last one, which I think it's true to everybody, and I love this one too: speed without panic. but it's so true, because it's like, the more you learn, then the simpler things get. It's going to take less time to do those things, and there are going to be panic moments. But with these other, like, parts, kind of these invisible parts that you speak of culture, then it allows us speed without panic to really function very, very well. And I think when we think of culture, a lot of times we just look at, like, hey, we want to make sure everybody's laid back and respective of each other and everything else. But it goes further than that. And that's the part where I think sometimes people get stuck. And it was so helpful and great to hear your perspective and how it has been very effective, with you guys and what you do and what you built.
Yeah, that's right. Because culture helps you keep evolving. So you need space to test, adapt, and iterate, not just on features, but on the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sergey, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I can't thank you enough. But before we go, I'd love for you to share, any suggestions, tips, or key takeaways from our conversation, because I know there's some really good ones in here that I'm sure you'll pick out that we should really hone in on, even though we should really hone in on everything we talked about.
All right, I have just five takeaways. So number one, live ops isn't just AAA territory. Number two, community is the real engine. Number three, update cadence matters more than scale. Number four, align monetization with emotion. And finally, number five, live storytelling creates return hooks.
Wow, such great and amazing key takeaways. You know, can't thank you enough. But before we depart, what are some links? What are ways to connect with you? If any of us are interested in picking up your book, where can we do that? Please drop us some links.
Look, you can easily go to Amazon. It's available in any location, either in physical format or as an ebook. So, is the easiest way is Amazon.
And the title of the book again?
Running a successful live service game.
Excellent.
And I also very active on LinkedIn and post my observations on what's going on in the industry and trying to pack some key points from the book as kind of entertaining content for LinkedIn. And thanks to all of this generated AI toolset and Sora and everything, I right now can mix the well-known characters from games into the images with the message that I want to convey.
Yes, it does it can make that process easy, but I would say, more importantly, a lot of those conversations in which I partake in too, and comment on are really insightful too. They capture some of what we talked about here in their own way, but so anybody interested in at least connecting or definitely following Sergey on LinkedIn, that's definitely a great place to do that, to get more little tidbits and takeaways, like an extension of this conversation too. So, and for Wargaming, anybody looking to check out that site, I'm sure some of us are familiar, but what's a link that people can go and check out and learn more there?
Wargaming.net.
All right, simple.
Easy.
All right, folks. Well, Sergey, this has been great. So many valuable takeaways, insights. Again, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing what you do and how you do it with the listeners, and really appreciate.
And yeah, thank you for invitation. It was very good experience for me to share, what is in my book for the audience that more into the indie space rather than AAA studios.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.